Hi everyone, I'm Jeff Glazer. I'm an attorney with Ogden Glazer Schaefer. You may know me from such places as your email inbox and your telephone. Today we're going to talk about the exciting world of online ordering for alcohol. Some recent guidance from the Department of Revenue has tweaked what we previously understood about online ordering in the state of Wisconsin. As you may have heard a couple of weeks ago, at the start of this whole COVID mess, the Department of Revenue issued guidance saying that wineries with direct wine shippers permits can deliver. That was new. Luckily, the statutes, when it was pointed out to Department of Revenue, don't exactly define what ship means, created an interpretation or ended up on an interpretation that said, hey, delivery is a kind of shipping. So we were able to get shipping, or delivery rather, for wineries with direct wine shippers permits. Well, after some questions from our friend Mark Garthwaite over at the Wisconsin Brewers Guild, we have some more good news from the online ordering front. Mark submitted a question to Department of Revenue Chief Enforcement Agent Tyler Quam and received a positive response. So I will read to you what Mark's request to Department of Revenue was. Mark's request lays out a procedure for online ordering. One thing I'll say about this request up front is you'll notice it's pretty detailed, it's pretty specific, and it's probably not in its exact form entirely workable by the average person. So I'm going to read through what Mark submitted, and then we're going to talk a little bit about sort of what I take from that and the abstraction that maybe can be a general guidance for everybody else. So Mark's request starts with 1. A customer places an online order for beer, because he's the Brewers Guild, although this applies to wine and spirits. A customer places an online order for beer using a credit card and schedules a pickup at a brewery or other licensed premises. So yeah, this includes retailers too. The customer receives a confirmation email that includes a QR code, similar to a beer festival ticket that is purchased online. This comparison is pretty key to this analysis, and we'll get into why this is important in a bit. The customer either prints out a paper copy of the QR code ticket or keeps the QR code confirmation ticket on their mobile device. 3. The customer arrives by car on the extended brewery or licensed premises and shows their ID to a brewery or retailer employee by holding it against the side of their closed car window. The employee verifies that the customer is legally authorized to purchase beer. So you will notice that Mark started this step with the customer arrives by car on the extended brewery or licensed premises. You may recall, or you may have heard from other guidance earlier from me or from other places, that you can deliver alcohol to your parking lot, but your parking lot needs to be part of your licensed premises. So if you are a brewery, that may mean making changes to your brewer's permit. If you are a winery or a distillery or a brew pub or a retailer, this might mean that you have to go to your municipality and get your Class A or Class B license amended to include 1 or 2 parking spaces in your parking lot. I know it's a pain, but if your parking lot is not part of your premises, you can't take orders in your parking lot. So this third step from Mark presumes that you have extended your premises so that you can take orders in your parking lot. Step 4, the customer holds either the paper ticket or their mobile phone against the inside of the closed car window to allow the brewery or retail employee to scan the QR code with a mobile device which verifies, records, and completes the face-to-face transaction. Right? So the problem that we had in the law is that Wisconsin law requires all transactions to be face-to-face. This is why online sales weren't permitted, because an online sale wasn't face-to-face. But something that Mark and I have been talking about over the last couple of weeks is while online sales have to be face-to-face, we online order beer festival tickets all the time. And that's a purchase of beer, right? That ticket gets you free beer, or gets you beer that you've paid for. It's not free. You've paid the ticket price. So if we can order a ticket for a beer festival online, why can't we take that same premises and apply the ticketing concept to a regular beer sale that says, hey, if I order online, that's basically my ticket. And if I show up and redeem that ticket in person, that counts as my face-to-face sale. And this is why I think, because I can't really get into Tyler's head because he sent a single word response that said yes. So I don't really know why he felt the way he did, but we can presume that it's really this final piece of the transaction, that bringing the ticket in and physically showing that to a person that creates the face-to-face transaction, even though the dollars may have transferred at a different point. So this is the really important part of allowing online ordering, is you have to have that face-to-face transaction that involves verifying and recording the order. So finally, the brewery or retail employee places the beer that the customer ordered on a table, steps away to a distance of 6 feet, and observes the customer placing the beer into their car. So some important things to know here, right? Part of the face-to-face transaction requirement is that you as a server have to be able to verify that the person isn't drunk. And so one of the ways to do that is to watch the person get out of their car and load it in. So that way you can verify that the person is not intoxicated at the time that you are serving or selling them alcohol. So you can see that Mark's step-by-step transaction, while really detailed and involving the use of fancy QR codes, really addresses all of the public policy purposes behind the face-to-face transaction rule. Of course, in its whole, it may or may not be, in its exact steps, it may not be entirely workable by everybody, right? Because not everybody has a system that prints QR codes, right? Not everybody can scan the ticket. So stepping back and thinking about what this really means, I think that we can simplify this transaction a little bit. First, the customer may order and pay online, right? That we know can happen. When the customer pays online, the online system needs to generate a confirmation code or ticket that must be presented at the time of pickup. This confirmation code can be something as simple as an order number, but the key here is that it's automatically generated by the system and applies to the specific transaction. Third, the customer upon pickup must present the confirmation code ticket in addition to their identification. This confirms that the person, not only that the person who ordered it is over the age of 21, which you have to verify, but also that the person who's standing in front of you is actually the person that ordered it, right? So this is an important part of the transaction because it's this verification step that we talked about earlier that says you need to make sure that the person that ordered the product online is the person that's standing in front of you. Finally, the employee must verify the confirmation code ticket and the ID before letting the customer leave with the product. So this is a much more simplified version of the transaction. Somebody orders, they get an order number, they show up to pick up the product. They can show that order number, perhaps even on their phone. They can show the email and it has the order number along with the name of the person that ordered it online. And then they can show their ID and The employee verifies that order number with their system, checks in their system to make sure that order number actually matches an order that they have in the system, and that the person is over the age of 21 and the name on the ID matches the order. So, and then at that point, the customer can leave with the product. So this is really the transaction the way it has to happen. This is so that we can be safe and we can enforce and we can comply with state statute, which requires face-to-face transactions. So in summary, some best practices. I'll leave you with some best practices. As the retailer, as the brewery, brew pub, winery, distillery, retailer, whoever you might be, do not let the employee or customer pick the confirmation code. The point here is that the system generates the unique code per transaction. This can be something as simple as an order number that is generated by your system, or as complex as a QR code. But if you let the employee or the customer pick it, then you could be using the same code across multiple transactions, and that destroys the unique verification purpose here. Second, do not use the customer's name as your confirmation code. This was maybe related to the first point, right? You may want to try to simplify this process even more than what I've already laid out. I would discourage you from trying to simplify this too much. What we don't want to have happen is that you oversimplify this process and we end up missing out on the important verification steps that are necessary for this face-to-face transactions. Third, the customer should physically show the screen, the mobile screen or print off of the order to the employee, and the order should include the name and the order number or whatever the confirmation code is. And the employee confirms that the order number and name are the same both on the identification and in the system. So keep in mind, these are separate steps. Reading the code and the order information and verifying it. Those are two separate steps. And then finally, I guess let me follow this up and say, we shouldn't be allowing the customer to read it off, right? The employee should be the one reading it. The customer should not read the number because we don't know if they're actually reading it, right? And we want to trust, right? We all trust our customers. We don't think that they're trying to pull one over on us. But on the other hand, we do need to verify that the person that ordered it is the person that's physically in front of you, and that the order number matches a number in your system. And the safest way to do that is for your employee to actually read it, or in the case of a QR code, scan it so that the system can do that automatic matching for you. So again, I wouldn't accept verbal order information. So that's the good news. It may be a little complicated, it may be a little difficult, but it's better than not. So that's all I got for you today. If you have any questions, feel free to call a lawyer. Hopefully it's us. And thanks for listening.